Welcome to our news conference. My name is Ali Safavi, and I'm a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, which is campaigning and working to bring about a secular democratic republic in Iran. Joining me today, I'm privileged and honored to let you know we have Ambassador Robert Joseph, who is actually a senior scholar at the National Institute for Public Policy. And until March 2007, Ambassador Joseph was Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security. In this capacity, he reported directly to the Secretary of State as the principal State Department official for non- and counter-proliferation matters, arms control, arms transfer, regional security and defense relations, and security assistance. And before then, from January 2001 through November 2004, Dr. Joseph served in the National Security Council as Special Assistant to the President and Senior Director for Proliferation Strategy, Counter-Proliferation, and Homeland Defense. And in that capacity, he was responsible under the supervision of the National Security Advisor for developing and coordinating U.S. policies and strategies for preventing, deterring, and defending against threats to the United States from weapons of mass destruction. Ambassador, great to have you with us this morning, and thank you for sharing your time with us. We also have another great speaker, Mr. Strone Stevenson, who is the coordinator for the Campaign for Iran Change and president of the European Iraqi Freedom Association, IFA. He was the conservative member of the European Parliament from Scotland from 1999 to 2014. And he was also the president of the European Parliament's delegation for relations with Iraq and president of the Friends of a Free Iran intergroup. Let me begin by saying that according to the latest report by the International Atomic Energy Agency on February 23rd, the nuclear watchdog has found anthropogenic uranium particles at 2 sites in Iran. The Iranian regime, of course, had blocked access to these sites for months, and it has not yet answered the agency's questions relating to possible presence at these locations of nuclear materials. The IAEA Director, Rafael Grossi, yesterday in his introductory statement to the IAEA meeting of Board of Governors, expressed deep concern on finding undeclared material in undeclared locations in Iran. One of those 2 sites about which Mr. Grossi expressed concern is located in Abadeh region near Fars, southern Iranian Fars province, where a project called Marivan has been underway. Today, I will reveal some information about this site, which has been obtained from various entities of the regime through the network of the People's Mujahedin Organization of Iran, PMI-MEK, and also some publicly available information that the regime itself has put out. I will basically in the beginning provide you with, I guess, 6 points, which basically give you a synopsis of what we're going to be talking about today. The first one being the site itself, which is located north of the city of Abadeh in Fars province, near the village of Shurjestan, and was built by companies affiliated with the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, the IRGC, in the mid-1990s under the supervision of the Ministry of Defense and Logistics at the time. The site was part of a project managed by the main entity in charge of research and development of nuclear weapons. It is called the Organization of Defensive Innovation and Research. The Farsi name is سازمان پژوهش‌های نوین دفاعی and is known by its Farsi acronym SEPAND. This site was constructed for a project dubbed Marivan, specifically for the use of one of SEPAN's subdivisions called MEDFAS. MEDFAS stands for Center for Research and Expansion of Technologies on Explosions and Impact, and it is engaged in research and construction of nuclear high explosive detonators. Dr. Saeed Borji, one of the regime's top explosives and high impact specialists, who for years worked directly under the supervision of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, the, I guess, father of Iran's nuclear weapons program, has been involved in the Marivan project for many, many years. Currently, he is in another role along with some of the most senior experts, but he is still conducting research for the nuclear weapons program explosives and impact field using a cover. The process to sanitize this site is very similar to the process implemented in Shian Lavizan in 2004, as well as part of the Parchin site in 2012, where there was a special explosive chamber, which of course the NCRI revealed back in 2012 in a press conference in Washington. As I said, based on information that we obtained from within the Iranian regime, the MEK obtained, and also from publicly available information by the regime, the construction of this complex in Abadeh for Marivan project began in mid-1990s under the supervision of Ali Shamkhani, who was then the Minister of Defense and Logistics, and currently, as many of you may know, is the Secretary for the Supreme National Security Council. The IRGC's Khatam al-Anbiya engineering branch was involved in the construction of that particular site. Both the project and the site are related to the activities of MEDFAS, and the whole project is a subsidiary of SEPAN, which of course was previously called Ahmad. To this end, IRGC affiliated engineering companies built large concrete locations at the site for experiments related to high impact explosions, and extensive nuclear weapons related explosions in 2003 at the site were referred to as the Marivan project. According to the report which the IAEA put out in February 23, 2021, this site involved the possible use and storage of nuclear material, where outdoor conventional explosive testing may have taken place in 2003, including related to testing of shielding in preparing for the use of neutron detonators. According to internal SEPAN reports, which we have been able to obtain, one of the key MEDFAS experts, as I said, is Saeed Borji, who for years worked directly with the IRGC Brigadier General Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, the former director of SEPAN. Among Borji's activities, and this is very important, was working with the two Ukrainian nuclear scientists, Vyacheslav Danilenko and Vladimir Padalko, on high explosive testing and also on explosive chamber for nuclear weapons at the Parchin site, which is located southeast of Tehran. Saeed Borji and two other SEPAN experts, Khodadad Meyhami and Hossein Ghafouri, worked on a project related to MEDFAS in 2011. The location of this project is referred to as Ahmadabad in the light of new evidence that was revealed about the regime's nuclear activities at that site. Ahmadabad is most likely the Abadeh site. An expert from the IRGC affiliated Imam Hussein University named Mujahedin was in charge of planning and designing this project. Saeed Borji, of course, is one of the most prominent explosives and impact experts and a senior member of the regime's nuclear weapons program. And he and other SEPAN members have formed front companies to conduct the research to advance SPND's objectives. Among those companies One is Azarafruz Saeed Limited Liability Company, which was formed in the city of Isfahan in May 2015 to work on forming and shaping metal using gas. And Borji was the vice chairman of the board. The company builds spherical tanks that are shaped to explode quite similar to explosions used in nuclear weapons detonation experiments. These tanks are made of steel frames that are welded latitudinally to create an almost polygonal structure, and to make it spherical, the shell is then filled with water and an explosive charge is detonated at the core. The explosion creates a symmetrical internal pressure wave of water that produces a perfectly smooth sphere from the welded polygon. Borji and a chemical engineer named Akbar Motallebizadeh, also an explosive specialist and another senior manager of Sepand, along with several others, also established the Arvin Kimia Abzar Company in Tehran in March 2019. The front company is involved in the production, purchase, sale, export, and import of tools and materials used in drilling and operation of oil wells. Borji, Motallebizadeh, and another gentleman, Fazlullah Kashanzadeh, who's also an explosion expert, formed another company called Parsian As Arvin Private Stock Company in Tehran in December 2015. And that company is active in the field of commercial activities and services for production, purchase, sale, export, and import of tools and materials used in oil industry, drilling, and operation of oil wells. Very tellingly, that company was located in the Chamran complex at Langari Street in Tehran, which is next to the head office of the Sepand. That company was dissolved in March of 2018 because the IAEA had inquired into its activities, including the detonation of multiple explosives at the same time, which had dual use in connection with the explosion of nuclear weapons, EBW, explosive bridge wires. And of course, the mullahs falsely claimed that it needs technology to operate oil wells. Another noteworthy point concerns the sanitizing of Abadeh site. As I said before, this site is very similar to other major sites which were in charge of the regime's nuclear weapons program, and it conducted serious research and testing. But when the IAEA requested to visit that site and sample them, the mullahs sanitized the site, just like the Shian Lavizan site in northeast Iran, where the regime's nuclear weapons program, Ahmad before and Sepand now, was located. And that site, Lavizan Shian, was exposed by the NCRI in May of 2003. And of course, once the IAEA requested to go and visit, it was razed to the ground. And when the agency inspectors arrived in 2004, up to 4 meters of soil was turned over in order to eliminate any traces of uranium particles. Another similar case was in the 2000s when the regime set up an explosive chamber at the Parchin military complex in southeast Tehran to test powerful explosions related to the production of nuclear weapons. And of course, Borji was working with the Ukrainian experts at that particular site. And again, when the IAEA requested to visit that site, they sanitized it in 2015. And of course, ultimately the IAEA went there in the Iranian regime sanitized it in 2012, and the IAEA went there in 2015. When it comes to the Abadeh site, after the IRGC discovered that the site has been exposed, in July of 2019, it abruptly destroyed the facilities on the site. And of course, after more than a year that this site was demolished, the regime made it accessible only on August 26 of 2020. I want to conclude my presentation by saying that the fact that the mullah's regime is seeking to acquire nuclear weapons as a strategic means to guarantee its survival, and for this reason, it has never abandoned the pursuit of nuclear weapons. For more than 100 revelations by the NCRI and the MEK about the sites, centers, projects, and experts involved in this program confirmed this fact, and it goes to show that obtaining nuclear weapons is part and parcel of the mullah's strategy of survival. We believe that the Iranian regime's engagement with the world community over its nuclear program over the past 3 decades has been entwined with duplicity, denial, deception, and cover-up, because these are part of the regime's DNA. And as we have said all along, the ultimate aim of the regime is to acquire nuclear weapons. And interestingly, when the JCPOA was agreed to in July of 2015, immediately afterwards, Mrs. Rajavi, the president-elect of the Iranian resistance, said that if world powers had acted more decisively, the regime would have been forced to abandon its nuclear weapons capability. And she said that the total implementation of the UN Security Council resolutions, total halt to enrichment, accepting the additional protocol, and anytime, anywhere access to all sites within Iran were imperative in order for the regime to give up its drive to acquire nuclear weapons. And quite frankly, we believe it is naive to think that by providing concessions and overlooking the regime's violations, even of the JCPOA, it will change its behavior. And ultimately, we feel that in order for the world to be rid of the nuclear threat, as well as the terrorism threat of the regime, is regime change, democratic regime change by the organized resistance and the people of Iran. And if the international community is genuinely seeking to prevent the central bank of terrorism from obtaining nuclear weapons, it must exercise firmness and hold the regime accountable for its action, including its nuclear height and cheat.